the most simple way that I can explain search engine optimization to somebody who doesn't even understand that as a term. But the problem in the SEO industry is that what I love about the type of SEO that I do, another thing that I really focus on a lot, the internet is just getting filled with those types of small lies.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am your host, Andy of MMG Design, and welcome back to another powerful episode of the Creative Journal podcast. So excited to be coming to you guys today with another episode. And today's guest is just far and away, every time I think about introducing her to anyone or just she comes into my mind in general, I just get a big smile on my face because she's one of those people that is just truly so wholesome and special. You just can't help but not smile when you think about her. And when you guys listen to her a little bit, you'll start to see why. But today's guest is Michelle Bourbennaire. Michelle's an SEO expert, content specialist, trained historian, and most importantly, a huge Cal Newport nerd, and that's going to become clear as you listen as well. But Michelle is the founder and principal of Words on the Rise, which is a boutique SEO agency in Canada that helps small websites get more traffic and increase their impact online through words and SEO. And I call her the SEO copy queen because that is exactly what she is. But Michelle is just, like I said, an incredible person. She has a very diverse experience background in the industry. She's a true practitioner of what she preaches, and she's just one of the most genuine people I've ever met. So I'm so excited to give her a spotlight and come on to the show. In this episode, expect to learn Michelle's story, her predictions on the future of search, YouTube and social media as part of an SEO strategy, which is becoming very trendy nowadays, SEO continuous learning resources for small business owners, and much, much more. Almost forgot to mention, Michelle has a free resource just for Creative Journal podcast listeners, which is the first time I've ever gotten to say that. So you guys better check this out. It's called How Google Works, and it's just an incredibly high value video on just exactly that, how Google works. So if you're new to search, if you're new to trying to get people to find you online as a business owner, which is literally the name of the game nowadays, businesses are made or broken based on results they can get from search. That'll be linked down below. It's like I said, a very incredibly high value video, very short, to the point, and it's going to teach you everything that you need to know. So without further ado, let's get right on into it. Super excited. Michelle Bourbennaire. We're on episode 60 of the Creative Journal podcast. Can you guys believe that? Wow. A year and a bit, 2 different moves, but we're still cranking out 60 straight weeks. There's been an episode in your feed, whether you like it or not. So like I said, without further ado, thank you guys for tuning in, and please welcome the one and only Michelle Bourbennaire. But Michelle, welcome to the show. Tell us all about yourself. I know you're Canadian.
I am.
SEO copy queen is how I always refer to you. But I'd love to give you just a platform to tell us about everything. Words on the Rise, your whole story, and I think that'd be a good jumping and springboard in the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a joy to be here. So yeah, I'm Michelle Bourbennaire. I run a company called Words on the Rise, and I'm really an SEO consultant. I help small websites get Google traffic. And really my sweet spot is in helping websites that almost have gotten no Google traffic before getting their first clicks and their first leads from Google. So I've been doing this for 7 years. And I kind of have an interesting story because I am not your sort of typical coding, tech person that got into SEO. I came here kind of via a different route. So I'm actually a trained historian. And when I graduated, I thought, well, there's not a lot I can do with this history degree. And so I trained as an editor. So I was editing books and I was editing articles. And then a friend of mine came and she had a website. And, as best friends do, if you have a website and you're kind of a words person, you help them out. So I was editing her website and I was just floored by, after we changed the words on her websites or on her one website, how much Google noticed. And so then it was just like, to me, that was just like the rabbit hole, to recognize that words were this real superpower when it came to Google understanding or not understanding content on the internet. Then I just had to know more. And so that's how I really got into SEO, is like via the words and via the content. And from my experience, most SEOs really don't come at it that way. Like they're going to tell you, most SEOs will tell you about like page speed and technical stuff. And I think that's absolutely important for really big sites and really important for like enterprise level sites. But for small sites, most of the time is really in the words. And so that's the type of SEO I do. I'm really a content SEO that basically does SEO for websites, but really just using words.
Yeah, I love that. And like one of the biggest reasons I kind of want to talk to you today is because like when I first came across you in pro, like almost over a year ago today now, is usually you kind of broke my brain around the conception of like SEO specialist. Um, and as someone who is like genuinely enamored with the craft of it and the words part of it, and I think by kind of building your brand around words and copy, you can kind of make it a lot more practical and tangible rather than like a traditional SEO is like focused, very results focused, maybe if that's the main service people are offering,
Mm-hmm.
um, rather than like being genuinely enamored, like, okay, this is words are the method in order to get the result downstream. And you can focus on the practical application of that rather than promising results. I think it's a lot more, makes it a lot more tangible, especially a complex topic like that. But how is your been in the game a long time? So like, how is in a good way? You're very young, obviously. Um, and how is like the perception of how you explain it change? Because it is kind of this abstract topic, and that's why I thought you were really good at like making that seem tangible. So how is your communication process around this? How like say you're explaining it to a business owner for the first time, and how do you make it seem something that other people can see the value in?
So you might notice that I don't have the words like search engine optimization or even digital marketing in my
Mhm.
business name, like very
Yeah.
much on purpose, right? Because like what do people know about search engine optimization or SEO? They know that they get a lot of spam emails that involve
Hmm.
search engine
Yeah.
optimization and SEO, right? Like it's really
Exactly.
perceived as a sketchy industry. And like frankly, a lot of the industry is sketchy.
Hmm.
So the most simple way that I can explain search engine optimization to somebody who like doesn't even understand that as a term, as I say that I edit websites so that Google understands them better. Like that's pretty
Hmm.
much what I do. And edit websites so that they rank better. But
Hmm.
even like the language of ranking can sometimes like throw people off because people just take Google rankings to be like, you know, just like a fait accompli. Like it's just that's the way that they
Right.
are.
Hmm.
And so that's the most simple way that I've been able to explain it to people. And people don't give me funny looks when I say that, so that seems like it's a good sign. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's talking about how you can get free Google traffic. It's a thing. Like Google does have traffic that they send to websites every single day. That's free.
Hmm.
You don't have to pay for it. But getting people to a place where they understand that it's more the words, especially with all like how easy it is to get a simple website up these days, right? Like it's
Hmm.
just not difficult to make a website that's crawlable, or
Hmm.
even just
Exactly.
posted, right? Like there's lots of services that will do that for you. And most of
Hmm.
them are pretty good outside of the box. So like a lot of that technical stuff, it's just rare that I come across a site that really needs technical help. It's more often than not, the site needs to be written in a way that Google understands. But the problem in the SEO industry is that so many people came to it, or like so many SEO specialists started off from the tech side. There's just like a communication difference there.
Hmm.
And so they give a million things to do, and then the person's just really overwhelmed and like they don't even know where
Hmm.
to start. And a lot of the stuff seems really ephemeral. Where what I love, love, love about the type of SEO that I do, it's like it's all on your website.
Hmm.
It's not convincing other people to link to your site. It's not like technical stuff that might only make a tiny marginal difference. It's like it's working on the thing that you have complete control over, which is like the content that is on your website and how it is
Hmm.
organized. And then another thing that I
Hmm.
really focus on a lot is keyword research. And keyword
Hmm.
research sounds really technical. And I really, truly have had so many business owners come to me and say, like, I love the idea of SEO, but like keyword research makes my brain hurt. Like I've literally
Hmm.
had a lot of
Yeah.
people say that, where it
Hmm.
seems really, really overwhelming. So the way that I've kind of in my messaging, how I simplify that is that like keywords are just the words that people use to find things they are looking for on the internet. And like everybody uses Google and like types in their problems into the Google search box. Like those are keywords. And so it's
Mhm.
not so much like I think the problem with keyword research for most people is it just seems overwhelming because there just seems to be an infinite number of possible keywords out there. And how
Mhm.
are you ever going to make sense out of a list of 20,000 keywords?
Right.
And what I try to say is like, it's not so much the keywords, like the individual keywords, the individual phrase that somebody's typing in, it's the topic. Like it's
Mhm.
what they're looking for. And there's lots of different ways to search the same topic. So if we can group
Mhm.
things under topics, then we can kind of see like, what is the search habits of an audience of people? So all my keyword
Mhm.
research packages, for example, are based on like, you tell me who it is that you want on your site. And then I go do the research to find what are those people typing into the search box? And
Mhm.
basically, like, if you could look over the shoulder of your next customer, like, what are they typing? Like, what are they typing into
Mhm.
that box? And how can we create content that like scratches that itch, that like really
Yeah.
genuinely helps the person that just typed that phrase? Um,
Mhm.
and so like it's really market research. It's not like so
Right.
if you can move keyword research sounds really jargony, but like if you can just think of it as like market research that's like surprisingly easy to do,
Mhm.
meaning it's
Yeah.
just a database and you look for keywords, then I think it does make it a bit more approachable for people.
Yeah, it's a lot, like I said, kind of a lot more tangible, and I think it can almost be an uncomfortable situation because you're almost asking them to define, like, very narrowly define themselves, like, "Oh, like, what this business is, I put this blood, sweat, and tears into. It can't be
Mhm.
defined in one word," you know?
Mhm.
Um, and that's not really the intent. The intent is to not deceive people into landing on your page or to get as much traffic as possible, is to match their intent. That's why it's called search intent.
That it's like
Um,
the right people on the page, right? So like you can
right.
another reason why people get confused with SEO is they're often looking at very high volume keywords. But
Mhm.
truthfully, like you want the right keyword. You want the one where the person just types something in and then they landed on your page and they're like, boom, this is for me. Like this is
Mhm.
exactly what I was looking for on the internet. And those
Yeah.
are that's the stuff that's going to convert, right? Like that's where
Mhm.
they're going to stay on your page forever. They're going to like read every page on your site because they found something that they maybe weren't even expecting existed.
Mhm.
And like that match, like going after specific, I mean, jargony, but long tail keywords, but like more
Yeah.
specific keywords that like exactly match what somebody's looking for rather than going for like something that's broad, but people end up just leaving because yeah, like you tricked them there. Or you
Mhm.
tricked Google into ranking you for that thing.
Right.
It's much better to go after the thing that you really are. But the one thing that's really tough is that, you know, it's just the curse of the expert. And I'm just as bad at this as everybody else that like when you own your own business, you know it inside and out. And it's really
Mhm.
hard to get outside of yourself and imagine what somebody who just realized that they needed this thing would
Mhm.
be typing, right? Like
Right.
it's so hard to remember what it's like to not know. And so
Mhm.
that's where like keyword research is helpful
Yeah.
and like, you know, doing interviews with their clients and lots of other things too. But um
Mhm.
getting to be able to get out of your own kind of biases in terms of language and finding those words that like somebody who's getting, you know, who's just starting the buying journey is using, like that's kind of really
Mhm.
key.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, even as we're talking, I'm kind of realizing that it's so much more expansive into knowing the bit, like, practical business principles, like not just knowing your customer, but knowing them well enough to, like, really get inside their head and what they're actually searching. And
Mhm.
that's why I think, like, feedback like that, having someone who's actually a fresh perspective, like, okay, you don't know me, you don't know my business, you don't know, like, what's your first perception and what downstream it would those words manifest, saying that we just had a conversation, we just talked to each other.
Mhm.
What are the words that are manifested from that, and how would you type that into Google? And then that's how
Totally.
people find you.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's really, like, zoom out, big perspective. I
Yeah.
hadn't had that thought before. Like, even when I do research, a lot of it is just kind of, I mean, I don't want to say surface level, but it hasn't come from that perspective. Um, as far as like matching people at the very beginning of, because and it isn't even like, it doesn't, it's obviously industry matched. It is industry relevant,
Mhm.
but it could be different for every website, every industry, and how much Michelle, how much do you factor in like the website itself versus the services they offer, or how do you like balance all the inputs that go into like forcing this? So you meet with a business owner,
Mhm.
they probably have their, and I mean, tell me if this sounds familiar. They have a different intention and idea of their business than is reality, and that's like you said, like curse of the expert.
Mhm.
So how do you like present that, but then also take all of these inputs that whether it's the industry, the structure of their existing website,
Mhm.
um, and just create something and that will help them get found or just create the best thing possible for them.
So I have a couple different ways depending on whether their site exists today. Like if they already have a site, then that's one of the inputs, right? Like we need to look and see
Mhm,
what the site is naturally ranking for. Because like I
mhm,
would never want to go in and have them lose something that they already had gained, right? Even if they don't know that they're ranking for those keywords, I want to make sure that they continue to rank for the keywords that are valuable that they were already ranking for. So that's one
mhm,
input if they already have an existing site. But then I do interviews. So like I've been doing interviews for so long that I now feel quite confident that in a
mhm,
45-minute conversation, I can get the information that I need to be able to go find the right keywords for that site. And I
mhm,
sometimes joke like, and it's actually why I love what I do so much is that like
mhm.
every week I'm working on a new and completely different industry. Like
Yeah.
I have done this for semiconductor packaging companies. I've done this for an
Huh.
abstract artist, like web design and all the regular ones like web designers and consultants and executive coaches
Yeah.
and the things that people do on the internet more commonly.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Mhm.
Medical device manufacturing. So like just to say that everybody uses the internet. And so even though I actually have a lot of fun now because I've been in it long enough that it's
Yeah.
fun for me when somebody says I do medical device manufacturing because I can just play like the student, right? Like I don't have to
Mhm,
pretend like I know anything about medical device manufacturing going in, but I know how to
mhm,
ask the questions and kind of pull out of them what are the things that I really need to know about this industry and how somebody buys in this industry so that I can find the words that are matching it. Um,
hmm,
and so that is, I mean, really talking to them about their buying process, like, and in that case, it was like regulatory stuff, right? Like it's really like stuff that of course no one would know unless they're in the industry.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
and then of course competitive research. That's the other like, the secret of keyword research is often too that you're probably not the first website on the internet that does that thing.
Mhm,
And so I
mhm,
can always find a website, often a really big website. So for example, the abstract artist, like there's a huge I think it's called Artsy, and it's like they sell lots and lots of different artists, like fine art on the internet.
mhm,
And so like they were a very useful source for me to sort of like get into that industry and understand some of the search habits of somebody who's
mhm.
about to buy art on the internet.
Okay.
So that's one of the real ways that you can do it. But yeah, I
Okay.
do interviews at the beginning. I do really broad keyword research. It's basically you go broad, you find everything, and then you whittle it down. And so
Mhm.
then you whittle it
Yeah.
down to like what's really relevant. So for an existing site, I'm probably doing content planning for them and finding topics that they could write about, kind of really broad, and finding like a whole universe of things that they could be writing about that would interest their audience.
Mhm,
For a new site, I'm often doing what I made it up. It's not a real word, an SEO page plan. And
mhm,
so that's me planning out the SEO foundations of a new site. So it's like, this is what you should be targeting on your homepage. Okay. I think you need 3 service pages, and this is the target keyword cluster for each of them. And then I give like, page title and like words to integrate and basically like instructions, like a recipe for writing
mhm,
each of those pages. And so then they bring that to their
mhm,
copywriter or they write that themselves, kind of following the instructions. So
mhm.
that's what I do for a new site.
Nice. Wow. I can tell you have your process and your communication dialed down, and obviously that's very important. So, like to anyone listening, like if your SEO consultant is not doing that, then they're not living up to their standards.
Thank you.
Um, but yeah, it's like I said, I'm having it's one of those moments where taking those inputs of like how the process works is just so important because if you go to someone else, and this is true with any industry, especially marketing, because so much of it is communication.
Mhm.
And I've heard a lot of people say you want to view not as sales but as education and communication, and just focus on like how can I make these dense topics much more practical and tangible.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's a big challenge with any industry because you want to find that line where you portray yourself as the expert and you're giving advice, you're the consultant, but
Mhm.
you're not portraying all this dense information and using these complex language. And
Mhm.
that's something that I know I'm always training myself on. I think that's relevant to any service provider in any industry when you're communicating with customers or people that are raising their hand to do business with you. So
Mhm.
I think it's really powerful.
And I think, like, I have an unfair advantage. I don't think in my actual, like, speaking, I am, like, simple enough, but, like, having a background in editing, like, I write and then edit
Mhm,
and edit and edit and edit. So, like, my first drafts of anything are way too jargony, way too long, really long sentences.
mhm,
But, it's always all good writing is done in the editing. And so to me, that's like, I don't worry so much about what the first draft looks like. I
yeah,
know that I can come back the next day and like it gets better, 10% better 5 times gets you to where you need to go with copy. And
yeah,
also getting an outside opinion, like having somebody who's not involved. And then I work with some amazing copywriters. Like I do SEO for other copywriters.
yeah,
And like having an outside perspective, like copywriters are worth their weight in gold, really, because they
mhm.
can do that outside thing for you, and they're not burdened by the curse of the expert, but they talk to your customers and then they figure out like what do your customers need to hear in order to feel comfortable buying from you.
Yeah, and I, like, very recently, like, just came across the value in, like, really good copy. I actually experienced it, and it's almost one of those things where you overlook before because, like, oh, language is language, but then when you
Mhm.
actually take a moment to read everything all the way through,
Mhm.
it's so obvious whether it was, I mean, obviously, like, AI generated, that's very obvious, or if
Mhm.
someone, like, really put craft into it. I have, Michelle, I have a friend, Maria, and she, like, really I introduced you, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. We're meeting next
But
week.
seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, that makes me happy. But she, like, the way she writes, like, I think a little bit of it was, like, my personal character trait of, like, being rushed and not always, like, really engaging in words, but it's so like, you start to feel, I can't even explain it, it sounds, like, holistic, but you start to feel a different way when you read words that were, like, crafted, and, I am very bullish on it now, when before I probably would
Mhm.
not have been. But when we talk about, like, words specifically in writing, being articulate with your content, like, has your workflow changed at all given, like, a lot of these AI writing tools or language models that people are spinning up hundreds of blog posts and just word vomit over and over? But how is that, like, from an expert
So
perspective? How does that change your workflow though?
so the SEO industry actually like used these tools even like 2 or 3 years before they hit the mainstream with ChatGPT. So like
Mm,
I saw this coming, I mean, I think 5 years ago with like the first generation ones that like kind of weren't good for anything except for writing spam.
right.
and
Yeah.
and then now they're like, I don't know. So I'm I'm obsessed with the tech of it. Like I read the papers. I'm really interested in how generative AI works.
Mhm.
But in terms of my own writing process, I really don't like it. Like I've
Hmm.
tried, I use it every once in a while. I think it's a great thesaurus. It's
Mhm.
fantastic when
Right.
I'm looking for like 17 variations on a word and I'm feeling stuck. It is definitely
Mhm.
even just how it's been trained and how that thing works. I think it's great as like Photoshop for words. Like I think it's amazing for helping people rephrase things if they're not like confident rephrasing things. But I don't know, like you kind of said it. Like I think that people see AI content and know that
Mhm.
it's AI content, even if the AI
Yeah.
content, like the AI content detectors are terrible, like hilariously
Oh,
terrible,
yeah.
very bad
Mhm.
at telling the
Mhm.
truth about whether it is AI or not. And yet, I think all of us, like the real humans, I think we can see it now. And so to
Yeah.
me, like as soon to be honest, as soon as I see that something is like gets your little spidey senses going that it was I stop
Uh-huh.
reading, to be honest. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't
Me
have time
too.
for synthetic text.
I
So I
know.
don't use it in my own writing either. And actually I even put
Okay.
at the bottom of my website, I put like a cute little like, this is like 100% organic content made from human neurons or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to say that
That's
like
awesome.
I think
Mhm.
that those of us that continue to write with our own brains um kind of should say that on the internet. I don't know.
Right. Yeah,
The
because it's not smart enough to say that for itself yet. So I think
and
adding
I
that
think
disclaimer is good.
And I think so it's not that it doesn't have its place. It does have its place in small little like meta descriptions. I wouldn't worry about it. Like, and
Mhm,
if anybody's worried about like whether Google's going to know and whether Google is going to demote your content because it's AI generated, they've been pretty
mhm,
clear that they don't care how your content was created as long as it's helpful.
mhm.
My problem is that most of it's not helpful. Like, most of it
Right.
isn't providing anything genuine and new. Like, by design, it's just regurgitating the stuff that's already on the internet. And so,
Mhm,
like, it's kind of like Noam Chomsky called it high-tech plagiarism, and, like, I kind of agree. And
mm.
so
Yeah.
it's not I just don't think it's there yet. I'm not
Yeah.
anti-AI. I don't find it personally useful, and whenever I read it, I think, "Do you really care about your audience enough? Like, you didn't
Yeah.
even write it." I
Right,
don't know.
dude. So
I don't
much,
know how
yeah,
to
so
talk
much
about AI without, like, just sounding like a complete downer, but that's
yeah.
basically my actual take.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, and I think you can kind of like as an external barometer, you can kind of tell someone's own skill with writing and words based on their response to it.
Mm,
Like people see something that's AI generated and like, man, that's so incredible. Like I'm so enamored with how I was able to write all this so fast.
mhm.
And then um yeah, and then it ends up just being garbage. And it's almost like they can't tell sometimes. And I see it myself too, is I'm not high and mighty with like other things, but when you actually take a moment to read it, you can just kind of realize that like okay, like you feel it feels like social media almost. It's like you're wasting your time as you're reading it. Um But yeah, I love that term high tech plagiarism too. I think because by definition too, if you think about it, it can really only aggregate what already exists.
And it gives you an average version of it. Like, it's not even the best
Yeah,
of the internet, right? It's just consensus. And, like, I
yeah,
kind of feel like if it was already out there on the internet on some level, it's like it's this kind of banal answer that's, like, not wrong, but not right. And then
hmm
sometimes it's just wrong. And, like, that's actually more
right,
common than people think. Like,
yeah,
so I'll give an example because I did try to use it once, and it's a good example.
hmm
So
hmm
I have a newsletter about SEO, and I made a personal, because I'm a total geek. I made a personal commitment to myself that I would not send out a newsletter without at least one footnote, because I'm an
hmm
academic. And so
hmm
every email of mine has at least one footnote. And so I was quoting The Art of SEO, which is a really great SEO book. It's a great SEO book. And so I went to ChatGPT because I was lazy. And I was like, write me, MLA style citation for Art of SEO, pages such and such and such and such. And it spits out a citation for The Art of SEO. And I look at it and I think, okay, yeah, that looks good. I just didn't want to actually take out the Chicago manual style and like figure it out.
hmm
And then I looked and I was like, oh, I had no idea that Rand Fishkin was one of the co-authors on The Art of SEO. And I look over to my hard copy of the book, and sure enough, Rand Fishkin is not one of the co-authors. But like the way it works is like it doesn't understand what a citation is. It doesn't understand that like there's only one correct citation. It just thought, oh, here's a list of 3 SEOs. You know what might go after it? Rand Fishkin, a very well-known
yeah,
SEO. And I was like, isn't that like a perfect example of how it lies? It just like
right.
throws Rand Fishkin into all the SEO books, and I'm sure Rand Fishkin would like that. But it's just like it's such a small lie that's like
Mm,
I had to look at the book and think, did he? And he's not,
yeah,
right? But like how many, the internet is just getting filled with those types of small lies.
right. It's like where's the line almost? So like you can yeah, I love that. So, yeah, wow, yeah, small lie. Like even if you like hear someone in person too, and they like kind of stretch the truth a little bit, and that borderline of trust starts to wear away, and then usually it is nothing but downhill from there.
Agreed.
I think just taking the lessons away from that, it's a big
And
thing.
like generations after us are going to have a really hard time figuring out who really did write The Art of SEO, right?
I know.
It's just polluting stuff. So, anyways, that's why to me, it's just to do the kind of fact checking that's necessary to responsibly put AI stuff out on the internet. It's easier to just write it yourself. That's what I think.
Right. Yeah, and I think, I mean, especially if there's a dedication to valuing your customers and audience's time, like that can't be
Mhm,
overstated. If you want them to read something and you didn't even put the time in to write it, then I
mhm.
think that's a big precedent about maybe the rest of the business as a whole. So I think it's a good place to start for sure. But what is it's something I'm kind of like So Tim Ferriss does the same where he like zooms in and zooms out. So like day to day, and then like why does Michelle think how she thinks? And I'm trying to do that. I always try to do that. Not very as effectively as him, but um, so like, what does your kind of day to day look like
Mm,
in terms of career and entrepreneurship? You were a trained historian, and now you have your own business. You
mhm,
are, in the trenches with business owners. So
mhm.
how have you kind of applied your own business lessons? What does a day in the life look like for you?
So I was interesting because we're both in a community called Web Designer Pro, and somebody just
Mhm,
asked this, like, "What's your day look like?" And I had fun
mhm,
explaining it.
mhm,
So the reason why I run my own business is because I have kids. Like, I want to be here for my kids before and after school. Like, that was a really important thing for me to be able to
mhm,
have lighter loads in the summer. Also, really important to me.
mhm,
So I work school hours. Like, I really work intensively in school hours, and I've always worked by myself. Like, doing a PhD is very much a solo endeavor. So I have no trouble staying on task when I'm home. That's fine.
nice.
So in the mornings, I tend to do deep client work. So I'm like a huge proponent. I love like Cal Newport. Anything Cal Newport
Mm,
has written, I have read and implemented in my life.
yeah,
So deep work is amazing, and so I do that in the mornings because I'm a morning person. So to me, like I literally think of it as like spending my brain power. So in the morning, I'm like doing anything, writing, thinking, research, editing, like the types of stuff that really like I can just zone in and like do that deep work that just I live for deep work like that.
mhm,
So I do that in the mornings when I'm fresh. I
mhm,
start to wane kind of midday. And then that's when I kind of move into admin. So I'll do emails.
mhm,
I do all most of my meetings are all in the afternoon for that reason. I can do meetings when I'm not in the morning. Like that's totally fine. I can do a couple meetings a day without getting too tired.
mhm, yeah,
And then I pretty much end at 3 o'clock every day. And honestly, the days that for whatever reason I can go longer, I always think, oh, I really like my days that end at 3. Like I really
mhm,
actually can't go till
yeah,
5.
yeah,
That's always kind of funny to realize I'm in my 40s to realize, oh, well, I actually can't work past 3 very well. And then I also organize so I work on like pretty specific projects with people.
mhm,
So most SEO companies are much bigger than me. I'm really just a solopreneur and I'm like
mhm,
love it that way. So
mhm,
most SEO companies will do something to the extent of like, sign you on for a package. It might be even like a 12-month package. And they'll basically say, we'll do your SEO and we'll take it from here. Like, you can trust us type thing. And
mhm,
I'm quite different. Like for me, all of my packages are sort of standalone packages where I'm doing keyword research for somebody and then I'm showing them how to implement it, or I'm planning out
mhm,
blog posts for them and I'm sending them like instructions on how to write blog posts. So I'm much more like deliverables based. And
mhm,
so most of my projects are things that I can accomplish in 1 week. So I kind of work on like a VIP model where I tend to pick up a
mhm,
new set of projects on Tuesday and then they're all due on Monday. And so I basically spend a week working on projects and I love it because I typically book up even a month or two in advance. And so that means that I'm only ever really focusing in on one company at a time. Like I'm not trying to think about 8 different companies. I'm like
mhm.
intense on that one project until it's done, hand it off, and then like move on to the next one the next week.
Hmm,
Another thing that
interesting.
I've Another thing that I've learned from Cal Newport, which I've just recently implemented, is 1 week out of every 8, I take a break just for my
Mhm,
business. So like I cherish these weeks.
mhm,
And I like go to coffee shops and I have deep thoughts and I launch new products and I work on my business systems, I write my newsletter, I try out new shiny tools. So basically, and I do
mhm,
professional development in the afternoons. So like those business weeks have been
okay.
so fun. And what I've
Hmm,
realized is if I do client work and business work at the same time, the client work will always take precedence and I never get to my
mhm,
business work. So like
exactly. Mhm.
doing my business work 1 week out of 8 has worked for me.
Wow, yeah, so wow, yeah, that's awesome. So, like, Cal Newport, first of all,
Mhm.
you are among friends. Um, did you read, Slow Productivity?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like the
very
day it
good.
came out.
Yeah, very good.
So good. Except
His
for the last bit where he undoes everything
yeah,
that he said in the first bit.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Um, no, but, like, I read his book, So Good They Can't Ignore You. I read that in high school, and that has been the biggest book of my life. Like, I find myself quoting that more often than and he wrote that when he was my age too, like, it's crazy. Um, but yeah, and I agree with a lot of his principles too. It's just, I haven't done as well as implementing them as I would like to, and I want to be embody the person that can do the deep work a lot longer. And I can. It's just the setting aside and really prioritizing it. But I think like yeah, I love that like the once in every 8 weeks. I love that approach to it. And also like the new it kind of balances like the long term projects with the shorter term, and it makes it more because you have like the holistic view of like what the schedule is. And I mean, I'm as with
Mhm.
anything in the world, I know it's not as regimented as like okay, 1 week pick up, and I'm sure you have it down
Mhm.
very well. Um, but like I like the idea of having a new project, something new that you can dive into to keep it fresh, keep it
Mhm.
engaging. Um, so how many like different companies would you work with in a year if it's very or is it recurring projects for the same ones?
So
You must
some
have like an
people
insane inbound then.
so I must admit I work with a lot of companies. I recently like kind of cleared out my clients folder for like people that I was even surprised by the amount of different companies or websites that I've worked on over 2 years. I get a lot of my clients through like referrals from web designers. So like
Uh,
often people come to their web designer saying I want some SEO, and then the web designer says, I don't know about that. And then they hire me either like on a white label basis, or I just get referrals a lot.
yeah,
And
like
then same
that exact emotion I felt, felt that before.
it's a common one. It's
Yeah.
a common one. And honestly, I don't think that it's like I don't do web design for a reason. I don't think it's very easy to really do both at a high level. I mean, I hired
Mhm.
a web designer to design my website. I know how,
Right.
but like, boy, she
Mhm.
did a better job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just to say, I this is a full job doing the SEO thing. So, anyways,
Yeah.
I get a lot of clients from web designers and copywriters. Basically, the same thing with copywriters, right? People come to them, and then they can sell a copy that's already been SEO optimized. And a lot of copywriters like me because I have a copy background, so like I don't ruin their words. A
Mhm.
lot of copywriters don't like it when you change their headlines in ways that make them unpersuasive.
Yeah.
And so that's how I get most of my clients is mostly through referrals, and then just referrals from other people that I've worked with. And so yeah, I typically work. I mean, in any given week, I'm working on two big projects. Like so, I would count a big project be like a keyword research package and an SEO page plan, probably for different companies. And then I have like kind of one-offs that tend to happen for other companies as well. So I do have people that come back to me month to month as I plan out one piece of content each month, or we've decided that I'm going to optimize 8 pages on their website and I'm going to do 2 a month until it's done. So I certainly do have projects like
Mhm.
that are ongoing.
Mhm.
I actually so interesting because I would aspire to be as organized as Cal Newport, and like how he does this time blocking thing where
Yep.
he like
Yeah.
has like I'm gonna work 3 hours on this, and then he even keeps it updated like to what actually happened and is constantly
Yeah.
reorganizing. My husband does that. Like there are people in the world that can do that and make it work for them. I can't.
Mhm.
So to
Yeah.
me, it's like my block is a week.
Mhm.
And then it just works. So I know how much I can get done in a week. And then I just
Mhm.
I don't book any more than I can achieve in a week. And then if that week's full, I just go to the next week and I book that one. So yeah, I'm probably
Mhm.
working with at least 10 different websites or 10 different clients in a month. Um,
Oh my god.
yeah, but I'm not designing the whole
Wow.
website. Like you're designing the website
Right.
and doing the
Yeah.
logo and doing the writing and really managing a project. Mine is
Yeah.
just one piece of that broader thing. And so it's more manageable, I think.
Yeah, but there's something to be said too about like I don't want to use the word efficiency, but the um getting exposed to more people, like having more like if I think there's a lot for
Mhm.
like really refining your process and more people have gone through it and you can kind of know the main pain points, know the process, know
Mhm.
what people get a lot of value in, what resonates well, what you're saying. Um, so I think reps like that are really big. But
Mhm. And
mm,
for me, keeping the list of products or services that I offer relatively small has been huge. Like there's lots of things that I can do and like quietly for some amazing clients that have been with me for 5 years, I do some services that I don't offer publicly.
mhm,
But having like a pretty specific list of things that I do and then just having great referral partners for stuff that is not in my wheelhouse. So like I know lots
yeah,
of people now. So I can send people off to somebody who's better for them for a particular thing that I just don't have the capacity to do. And I found that
mhm,
I like keeping it to like a set list of services means that I can be more clear on my website, means that I can be more clear with who I help and who I don't help. But it's also just like logistically for me, I like have those products nailed down. Like I know how to do that. I know the steps that I go through, and like I always get a good result at the end. And so like the anxiety of like, will it work, kind of goes away when you're like, okay, I've literally done this 100 times. I know how this is done. And like
Yeah.
at the end, I'm always proud. And so
Yeah.
knowing that each of my products now, like the packages that I have are kind of at that level, it like just makes my life less anxious.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously this is the world I live in, but like productizing your services, I think there's a big value in that, not just in the clarity of the messaging, but also just in the communication. So like
Mhm,
say a discovery call or the first time you're meeting someone,
mhm,
um, it's a lot less I'm selling myself to you versus I'm selling you this thing that is proven to work. I think
mhm,
that's a big mindset shift I've had personally is when you can just sell it for what it is. It's on the website, it's already there.
mhm,
Like I'm not coming up with on the fly. I'm not tailoring something to meet your exact needs,
mhm.
which you do in the process of it. You just don't advertise it that way.
Yes.
Um, and I don't think it makes a big difference in the consumer. It doesn't. It's not devalued in the consumer's mind if it's like this is what this is. It's just is it right for me? Is it not right for me? And what's the feeling that I get when it's being explained?
And
Um,
it's proving that you're the expert that you are, right? Like giving the prescription of what they need is a big part of having them trust you because like you've done it before. You know what should be included. And
mhm,
and yes, of course, like, I have these packages, but on an actual call, something specific will come up. They'll have a question about something. I'll say, okay, yeah, I'll make sure that we address that in the package as well. Like they are custom in the end of the day.
yeah.
But I do think that there's productizing services has been really
Mhm,
powerful for me. And just
mhm,
saves me doing everything custom or like writing proposals for days on end. Um, I really, really love being able to like, having been done it long enough to know the basic things that people need. And like, especially in SEO, like I feel like it's a bit more concrete with web design and logo design and branding. Those are like
mhm.
categories that people have spent some time thinking about. Like they know they
Yeah.
need a website.
Right. Yeah.
Where SEO is so ephemeral. Like
Mhm,
they don't know whether they need an SEO audit or a keyword research. Like, of course not.
right.
Why would they? And so, like, it's really my
Mhm,
job to guide them to the one that they need for where they are right now. And having those things kind of ready to go means that I don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel each time.
mhm. Yeah. Wow. So good. Yeah. That's awesome. How far in advance have you ever been booked out? So, I know you probably have a pretty good a pretty good system for prioritizing projects, and I know even with some clients, I'm younger, but to the game and just getting started, but I see a lot of times people want to work at different times, whether it's for
Mhm.
budget reasons or it's for it's just not really a good time right now, or I need this done now. Um,
Mhm.
so how do you kind of I guess it's more of an overarching topic of communication, but how do you communicate your schedule and how far out in advance have you booked yourself?
So I've for years now I have been booked out at least 1 month in advance. So I can pretty much tell people. I always like whenever I'm meeting somebody new and a discovery call, I do mention. I said just to let you know, I usually book up 1 month in advance. But once I
Mhm.
get to your project, I can offer a quick turnaround. So I do a sort of like, then I'll explain. I start the project and you'll get the results a week later. So most people are fine with that. And SEO, a little bit unlike web design, is rarely an emergency. Like there's just not
Right.
SEO is such a slow game that it kind of doesn't matter if we start today or a month from now.
Mhm.
So that hasn't been too much of a problem. There are a couple services that I offer with quick turnarounds because it is actually so like I do a copy boost. We haven't really talked about my copy stuff, but I do like a copy boost video where I'll go through a page of somebody and give them basically copy editing advice about how to get the copy to the next level. And I do that one with a quick turnaround because I don't want to be the one holding up somebody with their copy. I know how hard it is
Mhm.
to write copy. So I
Yeah.
leave slots to make sure that I can do those like kind of last minute as necessary.
Mhm.
And then the other one is the SEO page plans. Like I admit that I do squeeze those ones in sometimes because it kind of needs to be done before the site and people have launch dates that they need to do. So
Yeah.
sometimes I squeeze those in, but most of the time people are pretty happy to wait. Like it hasn't really been an issue. And I think there comes a point where even I start getting embarrassed having to say how long somebody is going to have to wait. There was a point last year, actually, when I launched my newsletter. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
everybody wants it all at once.
Yeah.
And so when I launched my new brand and then I launched my newsletter, there was a point there where I was making people wait, like, I think 3 months, and people were still saying yes. But yeah, that felt uncomfortable. I got to be honest, that felt uncomfortable. I did not like telling people that they were going to have to wait that long. But
It's a good
yeah,
problem to have, though.
it is.
I mean, and
I can't complain. My life is, my revenue stays more or less the same month to month. I appreciate that. It is a good problem, but like I do have empathy that like who wants to wait 3 months? That sucks.
right.
But I also don't. I mean, it's still Cal Newport. I know
Mhm.
that the difference between me loving my job and loving my life and thinking, why do I do this? Is really
Mhm.
honestly saying yes one too many times. Like just
Hmm.
saying yes and getting like saying yes when I should have said no, or
Yeah.
saying yes to a certain week when I should have, put it later.
Yeah.
I do hold things for people. So like if somebody is thinking about it, I'll hold it for a while. I'll, give them some time to choose. And then because I typically have other people coming in, so sometimes I can offer things that are a little quicker turnaround, because
Mhm.
something might open up that was previously held. But yeah,
Mm.
but really,
Yeah.
it was my, like, when I opened this, I remember sitting around a table with like an entrepreneurs, kind of like it was all mompreneurs,
Uh-huh.
and people had goals for their businesses. This is like probably 7 years ago now. And I remember people had some really outrageous goals. Like there was, people there that had some pretty crazy ideas about where they wanted their business to go. And I literally said out loud, I want to earn a living wage and be booked out 2 months. And like I
Nice.
did that. So I'm quite proud
Uh-huh.
of that. And I was like, yeah, that's what
Hmm.
I want. So being booked out 2 months was my goal and done.
Dude, oh my gosh, that's so good. And that's the concept of having enough, people, and there's a lot of, I think it's more common for people just getting started, but you see
Mhm,
the allure of like business owners and you see the flashy stuff, and I know everyone talks about the flashy stuff, but
mhm,
what actually is enough, and it's
mhm,
just kind of finding that line where you can maintain happiness and sustainability. I think a big part of it is just knowing that people get value out of what you do. I think that just makes the whole life thing a lot easier.
mhm.
And I mean, when I first started full time 6 months ago, as of the beginning of this month, so February 1st, it was so much on the side of not being able to do what I want to do and adding value. It was so much outbound and networking and doing the nitty gritty and just every day. And then like finally towards recently, I'm now booked out for finally for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I have like projects and I'm communicating and I'm adding value. I feel like what I'm doing is actually a lot
Mhm,
more validated and you're getting feedback from it. It's like you're
mhm.
actually creating something versus going to a bunch of events all day, talking to new people, but then it's all very surface level. Um, but
Yeah,
having your own thing that you go back to and add value, I think that's a big part that people miss, is that when there's the allure of just more and more and more, I think you can shift the focus towards fulfillment rather than trying to. I mean, because there's always people that have raised their hands for you, and servicing them is always more important than finding the next person. Um,
totally. And I think in my personal life story, I like made a pretty big choice for work-life balance pretty early on. Like
mhm,
I did a PhD at Stanford and I spent like a lot of time around really high-powered people. And
mhm,
and I knew I loved it. Absolutely loved it. What a beautiful place to do a degree. Enjoyed every minute. It was so fun.
mhm,
But I also knew that I didn't want that life forever. And so like
yeah,
that high-powered life to me was so fun at a certain time in my life, but like with a family, like I just didn't want to do that forever. And so like my family, we made a choice to come back to Canada where we're from to like kind of prioritize work-life balance. And so to me it's a bit of a no-brainer that I'm doing
mm,
it this way because like I did have a taste of that other thing and it was
yeah,
really fun, but I knew it wasn't sustainable for me. Like it just
yeah,
wasn't.
yeah. And you're gonna know. You're never gonna wonder, like what that was
Mhm.
like. I think you struck me as a very self-aware person. Um, and I think that is, and of all the people that I talk to and try and learn from, like that, I see, especially the people that I look up to and I would view as successful, that seems to be a very common trait,
Mm.
is that there's there's always going to be anxiety cost. There's always going to be opportunity cost, but then for them, that's kind of baked in. And they recognize that it's almost like choosing in advance what you're going to suck at is the phrase to it. But if you know what you're not optimizing for, it's a lot easier to make peace with that. And I
Uh-huh.
think that's important for your business. I think it's important for your own personal fulfillment as well. Um, and yeah, so I really see that in you, and it's very very admirable. So kudos.
Thank you.
But now, like back to the more practical side of things, like we talked a little bit about AI and copy and so
Hmm.
forth. What do you see? What have you been seeing? What do you have your fingers on the pulse of in terms of like search and how like GSE and all of these things, generative search experience for those that don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and how has that changed what not just like what your job and experience on the job has
Hmm.
looked like, but maybe for business owners in the future?
Yeah, this is like I've been doing SEO for 7 years, and it has never been this tumultuous. Like it is a
Yeah.
really strange time in SEO because everything's just changing so fast. So to kind of back up slightly, in case either people aren't in the United States, they haven't seen this yet, or
Hmm.
if they just haven't been paying attention, Google in the United States, and I think now starting in the UK, is starting to show what's called AI overviews at the top of the search results. So it's basically like on some searches, when you use Google, the number one result is actually AI generated. And so it's trying to answer your question with some bullet points and some paragraphs that are written by AI. And it's augmented by the search results. So like in the technical sense, they're kind of like doing that search for you behind the scenes, summarizing it in some way at the top of summarizing and rephrasing it at the top of the page and kind of hoping that you get your answer quickly through an AI generated result. And then they
Hmm.
append on citations that are links to the internet of where they ostensibly got the information from. If you read the patents, I have a bit of a quibble with how they put those together because they really
Hmm.
do generate the result and then go find the citations. And like I taught
Hmm.
how to write in
Huh.
university for many years, and that is literally what we tell people not to do. Like
Yeah.
you're not supposed to write your essay and then go find citations that support your points. You're supposed to
Yeah.
do the research and then write the essay. And like the search generative
Yeah.
experience like
I
works
never thought
really
about it like that. That's yeah.
well. And
I
also
never thought to ask
it's
that.
very prone, right? So like think about it. Like if
Mhm.
what you're trying to do is going and corroborating information on the internet,
Mhm.
then you can always find somebody that's going to say on the internet the
Right.
thing that you thought, right?
Right.
Like it's
Yeah. It's
the
so you can
leading
find
question.
anything to validate. Yeah. Anything to
100%.
validate your hypothesis. Yeah.
So the SEO world, of course, is all up in a Twitter, literally in a Twitter, about AI overviews and how terrible they are for click through rates and how they're stealing all of our content and just rephrasing it. And isn't that plagiarism? I'm like, probably is. But
Mhm.
also, I mean, I got to say, I lost some sleep over it at certain parts in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
But also, like, it is above my pay scale. Like, this is not
Mhm.
something that a small business owner has any really control over at all.
Mhm.
And so, really, now it's a matter of just doing SEO slightly differently. Like, it's just a new search feature, right? There was featured snippets. We all learned how to optimize text so that we could grab the featured snippet. That was the old answer box at the top of the text. This is just a
Mhm.
new and expanded answer box, and we're all going to have to learn how to optimize for them.
Mhm.
Until very, very recently, I don't think anybody knew how to optimize for them. They were quite random in the things that they were citing. Like the things
Mhm.
that they were citing were quite often not in the top 100 results. And so
Wow.
ranking well in Google wasn't really the ticket to being cited in the search results. But
Mhm.
following people in literally the last week since this new Google update that's happening right now, there's an August core update that's going on. It seems now that there's more of a correlation between ranking and being cited. So at least that. But I got to say, like, I am tracking it. I am paying attention to it. So far, none of my sites have been significantly affected in terms of click through rates. Like, there's no effect on the businesses of anybody that I've been working with, but like, I
Mhm.
am watching it because
Yeah.
people just read if people are happy with the generative result and never click through to the website, well, then they're not going to buy. And so
Right.
like it's just an important thing to pay attention to. And I think that, it's the new world. Like this is how it's going. And we don't really have control over Google and how it decides to put its search results together. And
Mhm.
so optimizing for it, I think is really the only thing that people can do.
Yeah. And I think it puts into perspective too. Like even as you were just saying that, it makes me think how much we do that in other areas of life, like how much we're always catering to changes that we have so little control over. I think it's a good analogy for life in general.
Hmm.
Is when this big scary hurdle of a thing, comes up, whether it's a threat to your industry or just something that is going to take a lot of time to learn and will
Mm-hmm.
change your day to day.
Mm-hmm.
To actually like lean into that, I think it's a really positive sign. And I think the people that are, I mean, that don't like try and resist change like that. I know it sounds very
Mm-hmm.
traditional, but it should be exciting no matter what it is, because I mean, seeing new things as an opportunity, and whether it's the very technical things of just research and learning to adapt to it, and then making it fun is
Mm-hmm.
another thing too. I mean,
Well, and I've
what?
loved optimizing for SEO, right? Like to me, this is like
Yeah,
the ultimate game, right? Like you change words on the internet, Google notices,
yeah,
you get
hmm
like positive rewards in traffic because you're ranking higher than before. You change another thing,
hmm
you get the featured snippet. It's so fun. And so
hmm
for me, I mean, it really is, as long as like there is a logic to it, like we'll figure it out. And just to
hmm
say that like it'll be possible to optimize for those things as well. It's just a bit of a learning curve. But that's kind of why I got into SEO, right? Like I like
hmm
the constantly kind of learning new tricks, and it is literally always changing, and that to me is really fun. Like that is
hmm
actually a lot of why I did it. This is just a really big change, as changes in
yeah,
SEO goes. This is the biggest one I've seen.
hmm
But so far it's only in the United States, and it's really not on all searches. I think that's an important thing for people to recognize, is like it's quite dependent on the searches that you're going for. So like I would
hmm
encourage anybody who's even thinking about this, like go in an incognito window. It's now showing to non-logged in users. So
hmm
go in an incognito window and search some of the things that you really care about, and see if there is even an AI generated result at the top of the page. Because it's really like, I think it's like 15% of searches. It's not a huge
hmm
number at this point. It's always changing, but
hmm
just to say this might not be relevant in your industry, or it might be, but you probably should go figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of double clicking on that, like other than like small, tests and things like that, like what are some things people can do to kind of stay up, whether like stay up with the trends, like continuous learning.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about distilling things down in a way that's not overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the layman's version of staying up to date while also not overwhelming themselves? Is it kind of running small tests like this, or is it just kind of um, reading an actual novel and then becoming an expert on it? Because, like you said, this stuff does change a lot. So, what are the best practices for staying current?
So aside from AI overviews, which I think is a pretty big change,
Mhm.
really the fundamentals of SEO are the same as they have been since I started, right? Like it's
Mhm.
clear titles to your articles that describe what's inside. Like some of the quickest wins in SEO are honestly changing the title on your article so that it is somewhat descriptive and hits on a keyword that you're going after, and
Mhm.
making sure that the article itself covers many of the subtopics that somebody is interested in if they just typed in that
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
So all the basics of optimizations, like if somebody's looking for kind of basic how to do SEO on their pages, I mean, there's an amazing resource called learningseo.io.
Mhm.
And it is all free resources. It's constantly up to date with new resources, and it's run by Lydia Solis, who's like a very well-known SEO and super generous in how she's
Mhm.
put it all together. And every link there is free. Like there's not a link to a paid resource
Nice.
on there. So you can really learn
Nice.
SEO using free resources. And the one thing I would tell people not to do is Google like specific SEO topics, like how to optimize my page. Probably those
Uh-huh.
results are terrible because SEOs
Yeah.
know how to game them. So like go to like a trusted directory or source, and like learningseo.io would be a great place to
Yeah.
start.
Yeah. We'll link that
Because
below.
you wouldn't believe all the spam about SEO there is in the SEO
Mhm.
world.
Yeah.
Um, so actually that's what I do when I'm in online communities. I feel like one of the things that I can offer is trusted resources.
Mhm.
Like to
Yeah.
me, like I know how to find the articles and the sources on the internet that are like, yes, this is good information. If you follow this, it will go well.
Yeah.
And so yeah, anyways, learningseo.io is a really great and always up to date source. Who
Mhm.
else? And then really like looking at like some of the big names to follow, like Rand Fishkin, Lily Ray. Like there's people on Twitter who kind of tweet about. Trying to think of some others, but yeah, there's some really great people that kind of at least keep you up to date with the major changes, and that's kind of how I do it.
Mhm.
And then there's the learningseo.io. She has a newsletter as well called SEO FOMO, which I really love.
Mhm.
And that's another good kind of like keeping you up to date. But really, the basics don't really change. So like reading The Art of SEO is a bit nerdy, but I love Content Chemistry by Andy Crestodina. That's an amazing book about writing for the web.
Mhm.
Quite holistic, colorful as well. Lots of great graphics.
Mhm.
Um, what else? Can't think of any other offhand right now. But yeah, there's lots of good resources for learning this stuff. The AHRS blog as well. They have some really good training. A lot of the SEO tools have some of the best training. Of course, they're selling their tool, but they'll also tell you how to do it without the tool. And so that they tend to have really good resources as well.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, that's more than enough. Well, obviously we'll link all that below.
I should pitch my own thing too.
Yeah, I was going to give you a platform. But I was like, how am I going to bring this up working?
I have a training. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I forget. I have a training. It's like a 30-minute video called How Google Works. And it's my take on how Google works. Like it's a very from the beginning explanation of like how the Google search results come to be. Because a lot of people come to me and they say like, I want to get number one on Google, but they have no idea what that means. Or like, how does Google decide what's going to be number one in the first place? So I've kind of boiled it down to this very simple 2-step ranking factor. So there's basically only 2 things you need to know that you really need to know. And I share both of those things in the video. And then I kind of explain how that plays out in the thing. So if people are interested, they absolutely should go over to my website, wordsontherise.com. And then it's /how Google works, all one word. And they will find a sign up to get that video. And then if they sign up, they also get on my newsletter. So once every 2 weeks, I send out like really helpful tips and tricks for how to do SEO for small sites, and really for small sites. I think the emphasis there is like, I don't do enterprise level SEO, and most sites on the internet are small sites, and like I think they deserve traffic too. So that is why I do what I do, and I'm having fun with my newsletter. Like it's been great for my business, but also like turns out I like writing on the internet.
Yeah, who would have thought, right? No, it is a great newsletter. I did subscribe a couple months ago, and it is
awesome.
in my inbox. So,
thank you.
But yeah, I mean, and anywhere else people should go. I know that was certainly enough to keep us busy for a while. That's like a whole university course to get started right there. So, with all those resources, so that's awesome. Yeah, dude, like, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously this was the highlight of my day. I mean, you're very well spoken, very elaborate, and like even tactical knowledge aside, which obviously you are very versed in, just the chance to talk and to get to know you a little bit, was, very high valued in my time. I know people are very busy, so all of your time is 100% valued. And like I said, I really look up to you, and I think you've built a really awesome lifestyle business. And so yeah, all practical things aside, I'm on Team Michelle. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll probably cut it there, but that was. I was trying to think like, okay, any other resources?
Say something about your thing. Oh, that's so funny.
No.
I forget about it because I'm not used to pitching myself. Or like if I do, I have a plan for how it's going to go in. But the conversation had gone so like wide. I was like, I don't know. Do I have any resources?
A little bit of that is on me, but that was